Right. You're a wonderful and generous audience. Now let's play games with words and ask interesting questions. But first, let me introduce to you the one, the only, Prime Grand Inquisitor.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, speaking of the legacy, what I found out is you are the only actor ever to have starred in James Bond, Indiana Jones, and The Lord of the Rings. 3 of the biggest film franchises of all time. And you're the only one. So this I find fascinating. But still, when you look back at these massive franchises, which one do you personally have the most connection with, personally, emotionally?
Well, that's a very good question, and the answer is, I suppose, in a way, Lord of the Rings, because Gimli, though he's one of 21 leading characters, is pretty central in people's hearts, isn't he? And I love the little fellow, and I found the inner dwarf, as you must all find your own inner dwarf.
There is a very interesting story going around that the main cast of The Lord of the Rings, the 9 main actors, they all have the same matching tattoo. All of them apart from one. You don't have it.
Let's get the story clear, shall we? Now, those drunken and debauched little hobbits and a little pointy-eared blonde fellow came back from a night of revelry in Christchurch, having had an epiphany. They said, there are 9 of us in the fellowship, and all of us, as members of the fellowship, will have the elvish word for 9 tattooed on each other. And you, John, being a member of the fellowship, will have one. To which I replied, if you think I'm going to let a drunken Maori with a dirty needle within 15 meters of me, you are insane. They argued, I rebutted. They insisted, I resisted. They finally said, John, you've got to do it. So in the end, I did what any wise actor faced with a challenge that might be mortal does. I sent my stunt double, and he's got the damn tattoo somewhere.
And I also heard that your stuntman for The Lord of the Rings actually played Gimli longer than you did, or was in more scenes and more shots.
No, here was the thing. I was the tallest member of the 9, and I could not get down low enough to give them a camera angle all the time. And it was just simply easier to get a double in for me and to shoot me in later. And of course, being a New Zealander, he took it very much to heart, and he'd go in there and he'd be their eye line. And I think in the end he decided that he was Gimli, especially as he got the in New Zealand, you can get a personalized car number plate. And so he's got Gimli on his car. But that was just enthusiasm, the ability to, you know, identify with the work and the job, and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it must be the project that you spent the most shooting days on, because the entire trilogy was shot back to back.
Yes.
So all movies were shot at the same time. Do you remember how many days you spent on set, on location, in costume?
No, I don't remember. All I know is that I got there in September of 1999, and I think I ended in May of 2003. So there was
somewhere around this. Yeah. I'm very bad with numbers. Yeah. This is why I'm always scrolling through my notes, because I would mix up numbers all the time. But one of the most interesting things that I found was there is one TV show that I love. One of my all-time favorite shows. It's called Tales from the Crypt, and it has this amazing narrator, the Crypt Keeper. And you were in one episode called Dead Weight, and it was directed by Tobe Hooper, the guy who made the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it starred Whoopi Goldberg, James Remar, Vanity, and you. And it was shot, I think it was shot on location in sort of a jungle area. Or was it a studio? Do you remember
No,
this?
it was just a studio.
Yeah.
It was, you know, they were turning them out once a week sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they were great fun to do. Vanity, does anyone know who I mean by Vanity? Does anyone remember a great musician called Prince? Vanity was one of his singers and dancers, and very close to Prince. She was a breathtakingly beautiful woman, and it was a real joy to work with her. She died not long ago, I'm afraid. I think before Prince did. And of course, Whoopi Goldberg was amazing. And we just had about a week of fun doing this nasty little grim Tales from the Crypt, in which, in order to get the ring out of me, they have to open my dead body, and out come all these writhing worms and things like that. They have killed me, of course, first. I think I was dead. Anyway, and Tobe Hooper. Now, Tobe Hooper was set to do a film about a shark. And he was an up-and-coming young director, and the head of the studio said, okay, what's this kid like? He's a terrific director. He's just directed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's made a huge amount of money, and he's got a really great future. And so the director said, okay, well, give me a copy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and my wife and I can watch it tonight. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the only film that I have had to leave by watching it in the cinema, not because it was terrible, but because it was the most revolting, murderous, cannibal picture that I can imagine. Anyway, so the head of the studio and his wife start to watch this film. And he comes in the next day and he says, we are not employing this maniac. He is not going to do it. Find that other kid who's got some promise too. And we'll let him direct Jaws. Toby could have directed Jaws. And Toby, who had a fine career, sort of missed out on that boat because of the brilliance of the picture he'd done, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just one of those absurd things. Did you know that?
Yeah. I just noticed something, by the way. I mean, it must be the stupidest thing that I say on stage all day, but I just noticed that in the show Sliders, your character was named Arturo, and you're sitting here at Comic-Con next to Enrique Arce, who is playing Arturo in Money Heist. What a coincidence. But still, the real question that I wanted to ask
that may indeed be the oddest coincidence and the silliest moment that you're going to have today. Yes.
So the thing is, Tales from the Crypt is based on a comic, and you've done other comical stuff. One of the shows that I watched as a kid all of the time was Pinky and the Brain. You were the narrator in an episode, you were in Ah Monster, you were in Freakazoid, and fairly recently, actually, in 2001 and 2002, you played Man Ray on SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh, I've reached the heights in my time. But let me tell you, sometimes those animated and cartoon things really teach you quite a lot. The history of Macbeth, who was the character I played in Gargoyles, that was a more accurate history of the historical Macbeth than Shakespeare ever managed to get to. And it's a wonderful, and it was really an informative experience. I loved it, loved it. And besides, actors shouldn't just simply say, I am a classical actor, I only play on the stage and great works, and I define what great works are. Actors are just the walking, talking incarnations of the writer's ideas and dreams. We were talking yesterday about words, and we came up with that old biblical quotation, in principio erat verbum, et verbum caro factum est. In the beginning is the Word, and the Word is made flesh in the silly old actor who puts it on and makes it happen. But you really can't do anything without a story, and you can't really communicate a story unless it's through mime without words. If you want to be part of the creative business of film or screenwriting or the stage, learn to use words. Learn to tell a story. And if you're going to be a filmmaker, learn to tell that story through a lens. I often get asked, how do I enter the film industry? Which film school should I go to? Well, I say, to be honest with you, everything you'll learn in film school, other than making connections, you can find in the extended version, the extended DVD of Lord of the Rings, because every trick in the book is really there if you look there. But this is the great, great democratic age of movie making. You know, anyone can get a little camera and it's got a video thing to it. So you grab your school friends and your mum and dad and the next door neighbor, and you write a 2-minute long film. And it can be about anything. It can be about the fact that the neighbor's shed is very interesting. It's new. but every time somebody goes into it, something else comes out, or maybe nothing comes out. You can write a story about anything. I mean, we could write a story, look, here we are, you're an audience. You're patiently going to listen to a silly old actor talk about film, you know, and you come here and our host comes on here and onto the stage there doesn't appear anybody. And you sit there waiting. And you could elaborate it then. The host says, oh, and he talks to the empty chair. And you think, this has got to be, there's a reveal, or something there. There's got to be a gag here somewhere. But everything is a potential story. I had the pleasure of meeting a man yesterday who was a story maker, and he was there with his beautiful daughter. And I told him a story, and it just comes to mind. Write a story, write a 2-minute film, just get anybody in with it. And you write the story, and you hold the camera and direct it. They're the actors. Next week, they're going to write the story, and they're going to hold the camera and edit it, and it's just 2 minutes, and bang it out on the internet. YouTube will take anything. Nobody will watch it, and it doesn't matter. But what you will learn to do is tell a story with a camera in 2 minutes. Those of you who want to be actors can see what happens on the other side of the camera when you're having to direct. And just swap it round. And after you've made 8 or 10 2-minute movies, make a 10-minute movie or a half-hour movie. And by the time you've done this 10, 15, 20 times, you will be a real filmmaker. And you should do it. It's a great time to do it. Wonderful. Bye. Oh, sorry. Can I go now? No,
yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And you're totally right. The process of telling a story is the most important thing. And actually, when you talked about your experience watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and to what heights Tobe Hooper came in the later stages, Poltergeist, Steven Spielberg, great movie. And then you have someone like Sam Raimi, who does the Spider-Man movies in some point, and he started with The Evil Dead. And you have Peter Jackson, who got to do Lord of the Rings, Heavenly Creatures, awesome films. But his start was a little alien film called Bad Taste, and a little zombie movie called Brain Dead, Dead Alive, or an alternate German title is The Zombie Lawnmower Man, which I find interesting. But actually, have you seen those? Have you seen Brain Dead?
Yes, indeed. I saw Peter's work and thought, this is a good filmmaker. But he surely doesn't think he's equipped to do Lord of the Rings. You know, A, Lord of the Rings is unfilmable.
Yep.
And B, anyone can direct a four-hander if they've got 6 weeks to do it, and anyone can do that. But when you're into 21 principal characters, thousands of extras, horses, fantasy world, CGI, it demands a special sort of genius to be able to do that. And I do not see on the basis of these little films that he has that genius. Mm-hmm. It's about organization. And to be honest with you, I wanted to turn down the part of Gimli. I didn't much like Tolkien. I didn't believe that Peter Jackson was going to make all three of the films because I've been on the big films, War and Remembrance, 18 months of principal photography around the world. Somebody falls sick, and everyone's got a month off or 2 months off or something like that. And the first 2 weeks that I was there, I went into every department in the film company and just talked to the people to convince myself that they didn't have the expertise. And I found depressingly that every single one of them was world class and filled with enthusiasts who just had this can-do, yes we will mentality. So it was a real revelation. But the moment came when the logistical challenge presented itself. We were down in Christchurch. The production office is here. The center of town is here. There's 3 kilometers between the two. Heavy rain, which not only takes out 11 houses between the two, but wipes out the road. And now it's 19 kilometers, actually I think it was miles actually, of single-track road to get from the production office to the hotels. It's the only time that I have ever had to climb into my hotel by stepladder to the first floor window because the entire ground floor was underwater. This is the time when the call sheet went out. There will be no filming tomorrow because the lake is underwater. Not only the lake, about 100 square miles around it. So we did not film the next day. The day after that, we moved to another part of New Zealand. Now you understand, South Island, New Zealand, is very sparsely inhabited. There wasn't much of a hotel system or bed and breakfast or certainly one or two motels. And to move 200 or 300 people, plus horses, plus canoes and all those other things, was a huge logistical task. And to find them somewhere to live just like that in the course of 24, 48 hours, impossible to do. But we did it, and the day after that, we picked up filming again on a different set, different scenes, and 6 months later we came back. Now, that's when you know that you're in the hands of real filmmakers, because the logistics required for that are the sort of logistics that you need if you're conducting a major war. And it was a miracle of organization. And in the end, big films are about organization. Big films are about something goes wrong, we're not going to sort of dig a big hole for ourselves. We'll stop digging, we'll come back to this, we'll move it to there and do something else. There is always a crisis in filmmaking. There is always a moment when the whole production looks as if it's going to fall apart. By and large, it doesn't. Once or twice it does, and you go home and find that the check's bounced or something like that, but hey, it's all part of life's grand mystery, damn it.
So, speaking of your concern when starting the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I think when you're in a multi-million-dollar production, the worst thing that could happen is if like you said, what if Peter doesn't pull through and can't complete the project and something is left unfinished? Which is something that I think happens to every actor along the career. And there is one movie that I have to talk to you about for a few seconds, because you were in a film that was barely finished, and you made it in 1980, but listen to this. John RHYS-DAVIES, Charlie Sheen, George Clooney, and Laura Dern in the same fucking movie. And it was called Grizzly 2, and it was filmed in 1980s, but they had the problem, they couldn't complete the production. Even the film equipment was seized by the Hungarian government.
There was a producer, Joe Proctor, I think I can mention his name, who, well, to be honest with you, a few years later, he went to prison for embezzlement and fraud. I don't know whether he's still alive or not, but anyway, he persuaded the Hungarian government and the Hungarian film industry to put up a huge amount of money to make this movie. And there was going to be a big rock and roll concert in it. And it was at a time in Hungary where the constraints of communism and the Russian influence was still heavy, but the Hungarians were striving to be a Western country and escape from it. So they really put their hearts and their souls and their very limited funds into this. Of course, in the end, it was, you know, the money that was meant to be coming from America, some money came, but not enough. And in the end, there just wasn't the money to finish the film. So the poor Hungarian producer lady they literally had all their equipment taken, they had the film taken, and there was just a big hole. And this marvelous Hungarian producer woman persisted with it for years and finally got the film back and finally managed to get the funds to finish the movie. And of course, it is of great interest because there were a couple of scenes with a couple of youngsters that no one had ever heard of, who subsequently went on to become George Clooney, Charlie Sheen, Laura Dern. So it's them when they were, for some of them, I think it was their first film. And it's just as film historical interest alone, it's worth looking at these young nobodies in that day, who of course now get top billing. There were wonderful moments in it, extraordinary moments. The director was a lovely man called André Zotz. André directed commercials in France, and he was a very, very good filmmaker. I wonder whether I can't tell that story. But there was the story where André and I the film is going wrong, and we know it's going wrong because, you know, people aren't getting paid. And I'm sitting in the hotel room with André because he's asked me to come because he wants to know what he can do and what he should do. So you can imagine now, it's a hotel. It's a hotel with one of these very narrow sort of settees where we are sitting too close together to be two men in a hotel room sitting together, you know. So we're trying to sort of, you know, give ourselves the distance that we can. And the phone goes. And I go to Andre, and he said, and I listened to the conversation. Now, a few days before, a woman had turned up from America saying, I am the co-producer of this picture, and I want my per diem, and as co-producer, I'm now going to take over the design department, at which point the designers said, no, you're not. Who is this woman? Well, she's Joe Proctor's girlfriend, I think. Oh, and where's Joe? Well, Joe will be turning up. Okay, so she was given her per diem, and then she announced she was taking over the wardrobe department, at which point the wardrobe department said, no, you're not. Finally, she settled in being the producer of the picture. So there we are, sitting on the settee, and I have to listen to the conversation. Andre, I've just seen the dailies, and we've got a problem. Problem? Says Andre. No, no. No, we have no problem. The lab said the print is fine, there is no problem. Andre, we have a problem, and we have to discuss it now. What problem? What problem? Well, Andre, I've seen them, and they're very, very repetitive. Now, when you're making a film, you do a master shot of the scene, and then you come closer, medium, and then you go close-ups, and then you change the camera position and do the close-ups on you, and then we do the close-ups on you. So the whole scene is shot many times over, so it can be cut together to make a scene. And he and I are sitting there looking at each other with that puzzlement. You know, it's very repetitive, and we're trying to think, what could she mean? I mean, she can't mean that. And slowly it dawns on us that she has never seen dailies and a pre-assembly of a film before. You know, we are dealing with a producer who doesn't know the basics of filmmaking. That was just one of our problems. But you learn more from bad experiences than you do good. And by the way, for those of you who are young, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Try not to make mistakes. But I promise you this, the times you really make an idiot of yourself and really get it wrong are the times that you will really learn not to get it wrong again. It's very hard for most of us to succeed without having a pile of mistakes that are that high that we are not ever going to talk about. And I'm certainly not.
So let me just remind all these fine people that we actually have a microphone down there. So if you have a question for John Rhys-Davies, please just walk up to the mic and ask it. Because we only have about 10 minutes of panel time left, and I see someone walking towards it. Please.
This is going to be a hard question, I know. Okay.
Hi. Because you talked about directing before, so I want to ask you if you have ever directed a movie or a project, or if you ever wanted to direct something.
Yes, very much. I wanted to be a director, but by the time I reached 55, I hadn't actually done it properly. Yes, I did finish a couple of movies, and I did get offered we were shooting in Moscow, and the lady director, it was her first film, and she was absolutely exhausted. And she said, John, I can't do this. you're going to have to finish the film for me. And I said, yeah, I would love to finish the film for you, but then it'll be my picture and not your picture. Now, this is what we are going to do. You are going to come and stay in my hotel for the night, not that cockroach-laden Moss Films apartment that they have got you in. And you're going to spend the weekend there, and you're just going to sleep. Nothing else, sleep. And then we'll talk about this on Monday, because what you need is just sleep. And come Monday, I said, so, are you ready to start directing again? And she said, yes, thank you. That was one time. There was a time when the director had a nervous breakdown, and he vanished, and the leading man walked off. Another case of too much white powder going up the nose, and we were stuck when we simply had 3 days. We had 3 days' work to do, and I got the cast and the crew together, and I said, right, I'm going to direct this scene here. You guys are going to direct your own scene there, and you, crew, I want you to prepare and direct that scene there, and we're going to get it done in 2 days, and we're going to leave. Okay, we're going to finish the effing film, I said. And we did, and that works. That said, if you haven't directed a film by the time you're 55, you're not going to be accepted as a director. But that said, I am currently building a film studio. I have 3 marvelous pieces that I am going to produce, and if possible, direct. In the end, you've just got to get up and do it. And, yeah. I suspect that it'll be hard to get the money to do it, but I'll scrounge a bit here and scrape a bit there, and if necessary, put the damned house up for a mortgage or something like that. My children won't appreciate that, because the first thing you do is you never, ever invest your own money in a movie. You try and con other people to invest in for it. If you ever get asked to invest in a movie, treat it like people who borrow from you. People borrowing from you will seldom give it back. So mentally make the effort and say, I am giving you this. If you get it back, what a wonderful surprise. If you don't get it back, you won't be disappointed. By the way, I shall be coming to Austria to open my purse and say, put some money into it. I've got some great films to make. I hope you're all there, ready with your surplus cash, or even your essential cash. But by and large, film is always a risk. And it's sometimes a risk because the big boys won't let you in. There was a wonderful actor who decided he would raise his own money, make his movie, and he would distribute it himself. So he went to all the cinemas and said, this is the film, I want you to exhibit it. And they all said, this is a wonderful film. We will certainly do that, and we'll pay you what we normally pay. The big studios got to hear of it, and they said to all the cinemas, you will not touch this film unless you really don't want any big studio pictures for a year or so. They all caved in, and he lost his shirt. But the point was made. The big boys have the power. And that's one of the reasons why you got to try and kick them in the nuts.
So I have to say we have 3 more people lined up for the questions. Please, no more, because we only have around 6-7 minutes of panel time left.
I
But
will try and be quick.
I would love for the 3 questions to be answered so I can close this. So that means no wing commander today, sadly. But please, go.
Hi, I have just a small question. In Lord of the Rings, who killed more orcs? You, also Gimli or Legolas? You know, there's the scenes where you count the deaths of orcs, like in Helm's Glam, who has a higher kill count of orcs.
And you are seriously asking who won? Get back in your blooming spaceship and hide from the captain. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you this. For real wet work, you need an axe. And you need someone who can use an axe. And a dwarf can use an axe. Anybody can go.
You played several roles in video games. Did you like it?
I like working. I like walking onto a set or a studio or something like this and thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do this. But it's just marvelous to have to stand on your feet and answer the question, you know? And I mean, that's great fun. I don't mind making a fool of myself. And that may be my strongest suit. You know, I will try. And we should all try. Don't worry about making mistakes. If you have got through life without making a mistake, well, good luck to you, because it must have been a boring life. Always try something new, and you will learn. And sometimes you will learn that you are making a big mistake. But it's fun, and you should do it. And I do. Next question. Do we have one more?
No, I think this is sadly all we have. Or do you have one more quick question? Please do it.
Is this working? Yes. Like your very good self, I'm a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. I've watched them many, many times, including all the extras. There's one particular moment where the cast members are discussing the other cast members, and I think it was Dominic Monaghan said of your good self, there was a time where you went to a restaurant, there was 12 of you, and you ordered food for 40 people. There was quail, there was duck's eggs, there was lobster, there was red snapper. I would love to know the truth behind that story.
Have you any idea? First of all, getting actors anywhere is like herding cats, right? You've got people who are 19 years old farts like McKellen and myself, you know, in our 50s. Some people have never had any Indian food at all, and they're all saying, well, I think I will, you know, simplify it. Just simply say, I want 4 of these, 4 of that, 4 of these, 5 of these, 10 of this, 10 of that, 17 of this, 18 of that, and let them pick and choose. It simplifies. And in the end, the cost, which I think I paid for, doesn't matter because you save hours of your life.
So, now we have wasted an hour of your life, but hopefully you have fun. Listen to us talk about old good memories. Thank you all so much for coming to Austria Comic Con 2021. But most importantly, thank you so much for being with us here. Ladies and gentlemen, John RHYS-DAVIES! Let me get a picture of this amazing crowd. John, we want to say goodbye with a nice little selfie. Awesome.
And a quick round for this amazing interlocutor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I said a quick round. Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And lovely to be back in Austria, and I hope you have me back again. God bless you all.